Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are happy to be here. We're happy to have you with us. I am Tim Dennis here with my co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. And producer extraordinaire, Mike Nate.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. So we made it. We're in the frozen wasteland of Atlanta this week. We've got the coldest temperature we've had in several years. And I had a busted pipe scare. And I don't think it busted, but I thought it did. So I'm still waiting. The water was flowing. I didn't notice any problems. So wish me luck, guys. And hopefully that will all work out. But yes, Brian.
Has it unfrozen since the scare?
It did. So it unfroze. And just a little backstory. I was prepping. We got down to like 12 degrees last night here in Atlanta, which is unheard of for us. And I did all the prep work, dripping my faucets. I put a space heater in my garage because I've got this one outside spigot that is on the outside wall, and there's nothing on the other side except the garage, so it gets extra cold there. So I put a space heater out in the garage to warm it up some there, and dripped my faucets and all this. But around 3 a.m., I heard a loud bang or pop, and it came from the exact area that and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, okay, I know what that was. But about midday today, things thawed out. Water was flowing through the spigot. Clearly flowing. I turned it off and I heard nothing. So I didn't hear any additional water running unless it's, a really fine leak, and I'll find out a week from now when there's a puddle outside. But, I watched it to see there's no river flowing down my driveway, nothing there. I still got all the spigots dripping in that because we're supposed to get down tonight, but I made it through so far, knock wood and all that good stuff. So
good luck, Tim.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So as always, we've got lots of hot topics to cover this week. Brewery sales, something we see more and more. I think people kind of don't pay as much attention to that as they used to, but it's happening. Of course, more closings. We hear from the Brewers Association. They've got their take on non-alcoholic beer, serving that. And as always, we've got a little bit of beer drama. We always like to throw the beer drama into things. So with that, Brian, it's dry January still. As we talked last week, we throw that out there. We want you to have options, and there are some good options if you're going dry in January. But because of the slowness in January, as is typical, and the slowness in the hospitality industry in general, there's a movement for Pub January. Go out, support your local pubs. You can stay dry if you want to. Go have you a nice meal, get you a mocktail, get you an NA beer. I've seen Athletic many, many places around, that'll have some Athletic cans in there. But Miller Lite, as always, I'm going to use the word fun. Use the word fun, Brian. They do fun things for some of their swag. We'll just say swag. They had these beer drops one time that we got that was supposed to make your beer taste like a Miller Lite. I guess that's a good thing. There you go. If you're watching the live stream, Brian still has a bottle. It's like Mio. It was a little bottle like the Mio water flavoring stuff. And when we got that, we bought all of the Macro Light lagers and tried it in there. And it wasn't good. Not good.
No.
Would be my descriptor. But, Brian, maybe if you want your drops in a different form, something you can just drop directly in your mouth. You don't need a carrier beer there. We've got Miller Lite beer mints for dry January.
Oh, no. We do, yeah. So this is one of the more interesting takes on dry January. Basically, they say that beer mints are here to give you a taste of Miller Lite without consuming any beer, along with the flavor of spearmint too, which sounds weird to me, actually. So they were selling these tins of mints for about $5 a pop. Like most of Miller's oddball swag, it's actually already sold out. I was considering buying some, even though I have a feeling like beer flavored mints would be just absolutely wretched.
Yeah.
But I'm dumb enough that I would still get it, knowing it.
Yeah, I'm an idiot as well. I'd want to try them, just see what they're doing there. Sure.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. I'm just not a fan of mint in beer. I've seen it intentionally some places and not intentionally other places. I don't think I've ever really cared for it very much.
If there's mint in there, I'm just not sure how much Miller Lite flavor you'd get, to be honest with you. Maybe that's the whole the whole thing with them there. I don't know.
What they said is the mint was up front, and apparently it finishes beer-like. It's supposed to finish like Miller Lite. And if it's anything like the drops, that means probably something along the lines of a cheap maple syrup flavor. It was.
I tell you what, I saw on Twitter earlier today, I think they were called Ghost Ship, but it was a tropical IPA flavored potato chips. What do you think of that? Do you want some IPA potato chips, Brian?
Yes, I will take some. I will eat them now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Amazing on air.
Again, it's not something to me that sounds very good, but the bag looked really cool. And it was something I tried just because why not? Try the crazy stuff, see what's up with it.
Because you never know, something might just be great.
Sure.
Like, usually not, but sometimes it's just great. So
we have tried a few things that seemed gimmicky, and they were good. That's you know what, the Cheerwine Ale from Noda, that was actually really tasty there. So every now and then they work out. I don't go into any of those with high expectations, but it's fun. It's fun to check them out.
Then there was that great nacho cheese beer.
Oh, the chili cheese beer. That's right. You know what? It delivered as promised, though.
Yeah.
Was it from Moda Brewing or?
I might have been. Yeah.
I can't remember. Now I feel bad that I don't remember the name. We had him on the show there. Nate, find us the Hormel chili cheese beer. See who did that one for us, because I know it's just not.
I still have a can
right now there.
Do you? Yeah. I wonder how bad.
Are you aging it, Brian? Selling chili cheese beer?
Yes. Well, it's just a matter of it's just a matter of not knowing when the right time is to open the thing, and the right time is probably never. But
when's the right time? Never.
It's modest. Modest.
Yeah. That's right. MODIST. Modest.
Spelled modest.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Okay. Well, you know what? Again, yes, it delivered just as described. It tasted like chili cheese. That's not a taste I want in a beer, but they delivered what they said they were going to deliver. So that's more. Brian, the Olympics are coming up, and who sponsors the Olympics is always a big deal. And they usually have a beverage sponsor there. And Asahi and Pilsner Urquell were sponsored, but they're pulling out of the deal. But someone else is kind of trying to get in there and take over. What's the scoop there?
Yeah, that's right. So Pilsner Urquell is officially the brand that's in there, but they're owned by Asahi Group or something like that. But they're polling due to the International Olympic Committee allowing Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete despite the whole war situation. So they have an issue with that. They will meet their contractual obligations to the Olympics, and they have some, by supporting Czech athletes directly. But AB InBev, no surprise, is swooping in to take their place, and the new sponsor of the global sponsor of the beer for the Olympics is going to be non-alcoholic Corona Cero, of all things, which is a weird choice, I think. But I will have to note that probably part of the reason for this pick is the French law prohibits the sale of alcohol in stadiums without an official exemption. I know they're applying for one, but there's probably the chance they won't get one. And as with anything like the private box stuff, you can still buy booze there. But yeah.
How do the French go to sporting events without alcohol?
I would assume they'd have wine and cheese with everything.
Right. You get a baguette and a bottle and a glass of wine as you walk, and a cigarette. Like as you walk in, you get those things. So.
We sound like we're kidding, but I would actually go to an event and do that.
Yeah, I would
try that out. I think
there's a cigarette, a baguette, a chunk of cheese, and some
just
wine.
One cigarette.
That's it. One single cigarette. Yeah. Wait, see, France. There's some ideas. If you're looking for a way to get more people into the stadium,
and a beret if you don't already have one.
Right. Yeah. But if you're going to France and you don't have a beret and a mustache, what are you even
doing? Yeah.
Right there. So that Corona Cero, is that an AB brand or is that something totally separate?
I think Corona, AB InBev owns the distribution of that outside of the U.S. There's a weird thing going. I don't have the officials, but within the U.S., they don't own it. And I think outside the U.S., they own distribution rights for it. So I don't have.
But we're talking Corona as in Corona here. Just zero. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, like Corona.
I thought maybe it was something different over in France that they get. Sometimes you have different names. Internet, like the cigar world, you got Monte Cristos and other. What are some other ones? Cohibas and Monte Cristos that are the Cuban and the non-Cuban brands.
Yeah, the Dominican version and the. Yeah. I think that's just the Cero might be the international name for it. I think it's Corona's like Is it? Yeah, it might be just Cero.
Okay.
I don't know. I actually don't know what
Yeah.
I had bottles of it before, and for a non-alcoholic beer, it's not bad. It gives you the feeling of drinking a Corona, so it's not a bad choice if you're looking to
a Corona.
looking to abstain from alcohol. It's all right. It's a weird choice for the Olympics, but hey, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I think, good for AB InBev, because if there's one thing that AB is known for, it's making good business decisions. So,
yes.
They'll nail that. Sure enough there. Well, guys, let's get into what beers we are sipping on this week. Nate, we're going to start with you, man. What do you got on deck for today?
Right now I've got a new one from Halfway Crooks, local to Atlanta brewery that we've talked about many times on the show. I've got their newest release, which is a non-alcoholic Pilsner, the Brevet Pils. It's really light and effervescent. It's a little bready, and on the palate I get some citrus notes and some light effervescence. So it's really tasty, and for a non-alcoholic Pilsner, I'm glad I've got 5 more of these in the fridge.
Okay, cool.
And then on deck from there, I've got a theme for today, which is all Lager, Pilsner, Helles. So I've got from Schillings, I've got their Alexander, which is a Czech style Pilsner. And then wrapping up, I've got the Ice Tour, which is a Helles Vol beer.
So you've Volbeer. That's a Helles Volbeer. Okay. We'll have to see do you know what that is off the top of your head, Nate? Have you done your homework there? That's a no. That is a no, but he does have Google. So the Halfway Crooks, the NA Pilsner, I know you've tried several non-alcoholic beers before. How does Halfway Crooks fall into the mix there?
I would say that I would rank this up there with the Athletic and the Entitled Arts non-alcoholic lagers I've had.
Okay. High praise. Yeah.
Well, I would expect Halfway Crooks to do that, but one, I don't think a Pilsner is the easiest NA style to do, and being new to the non-alcoholic game, you've got Athletic and those that have done it for a while and could fine tune from there. But, we know those guys, and I'm sure they put plenty into it before they put something out there. They knew what they were doing. So, Brian, how about you, man? What you sipping on?
So I started off with Three Taverns Beeps, and it's just an American lager. It's a fun, just easy drinking beer from Three Taverns. I'm on to Back 40's Paisan Italian Pilsner, and that's drinking pretty well. And coming up, I've got Bearded Iris's Homestyle New England IPA, and they're putting that in 12-ounce cans now. I got a 6-pack of that earlier this week, and I didn't notice it when I picked it up. I'm like, oh, this is a 6-pack. It's kind of surprised me when I opened it up. I don't know what I was thinking, given the geometry of the thing. I'm easily confused by these things. So like, oh, yeah. And I think it's a good choice. I think I like I like things going back to 6-packs, 12-ounce cans. I like that. So.
I think it's kind of funny how important packaging is. And how we go through trends of what is popular, large format, Brian, probably. Well, I guess they fell out of fashion probably the last few years, but before that, for quite a while, seeing 750s or even 22s was commonplace. Like Maine Beer Company, when we talked to them, and we mentioned they're out, and I think they're 500. Are they 500s?
I think they're 500 mLs. Yeah.
So, half-liter bottles out there. And that was when the can craze was definitely the thing. You were in cans, and we asked him, was there any thought of changing? And he's like, oh, this works for us. This is, and it, apparently it does. But you don't see as many that go in 750s and that. And I always enjoyed kind of, for lack of a better term, the pageantry of like a big 750. Getting a nice gueuze in a big bottle and, setting down and open it. Brian, I know you like to take, you twist the cage and put the cork back on the top there.
That's right. Get it seated on there and have it like a little flag off to the side of it. And, in some bottles where they have the year on the cork, you can see the year while you're, pouring it. It's kind of neat. I like that. If you remember, and I hadn't really thought about 22s as a thing that's kind of, they're dead. Like, you don't see 22s anymore. Craft beer used to be a couple of shelves at any package store, any beer store, of just 22-ounce bottles. It used to be just exclusively 22-ounce bottles across the board, and they're just gone, just completely gone.
I mean, I can tell you my cellar has plenty of 22s in it still. So, but yeah, interesting stuff, Brian. Speaking of those large formats and the gueuzes and that, I don't see it in the news here. So making sure I'm not, stepping on toes on a story you have coming up. But Drie Fonteinen earlier this week announced that, they had kind of a change in their team there and they would be making less beer. So,
that's right.
Less of those good beers coming out, which is sad news, but we've definitely seen a dip in the popularity of lambic and gueuze in that. So not surprising. I'm just hoping that we see it around here. I wouldn't say it's common, but it's not super rare to find some bottles on the I hope they're still out there. I hope I can still, if I want to pick up a bottle, I think at any given time I've got one or two in my stash, but if I drink those one or two, I don't want to go there and find out there's just none to be had. So, but it was not surprising news to me, but disappointing when I read that.
That is sad. I mean, I could understand maybe like a Boone or somebody like that, but I don't think Boone has ever had quite the distribution here that Drie Fonteinen and Cantillon have. And I still never see bottles of Cantillon ever. Like, that still disappears immediately. Drie Fonteinen, I can find. I know people are buying them because there's a place I can go where I can see a pretty good selection of them, and I will pick them up occasionally. And there's less now than there used to be. So people are, besides me, are buying them. I am also a little worried that my reserve there is going to dry up and then I just won't be able to get any. But I do have a number of bottles that I've picked up over the years here, ready and waiting for me to drink. So
you better go get them all, man. You better get what's left on the shelf there. I had a place like that out by me for Jolly Pumpkin.
That's
like,
right.
It was after, interesting long story here with Georgia Distribution, but the Shelton Brothers was distributing Jolly Pumpkin and Cantillon and Drie Fonteinen and some others in Georgia, and they, due to a disagreement with local distributors, they had to pull out of the state for a while, and they couldn't come back in for, what was it, Nate? The distribution law is a little better. What is it, like 4 years or something?
Yeah, it's at least 3 years that you got to be gone.
But it was a long time.
It was. While they were gone, there was one place that still had some Jolly Pumpkin. It was like a few different offerings, and I'd go in there and I'd get a bottle. And I'd go back, and for the longest time, probably for 6-8 months plus, the only time there was ever one gone is when I purchased it. And then I went in there one time and they moved them from the shelf into the cooler. They put them into the cooler, and still it was lesser amount because I'd been buying them, but they were still there. And I grabbed one bottle, and I got kind of complacent to where I'm like, well, they're here. I don't need to buy any more than this because it'll be here when I want it. Then I went back one time and they're just every single one of them gone. So I'm like, yep, all right. Some other beer geek finally came in and they're like, I better take care of this. So it's nice to have those little honey holes like that where you get, something that you can kind of count on that not everyone else knows about. The clientele of this specific bottle shop wasn't really craft centric. So, had a nice little stash for a while.
I knew that place, and I thought it was interesting because they did have actually a pretty good selection of beer.
They did.
Yeah. Stuff that was really interesting would sit around forever like that. And I think that they didn't have people of the persuasion that would enjoy a Jolly Pumpkin beer. So,
which made it nice when you were trying to get something, because a lot of times it would be there, even if it was harder to get other places, they would have it because it just didn't fly out of there. I think the only thing that I do remember them selling out of pretty quickly, this is back when the Bourbon County brand stouts were rarer, harder to get. And when they were first hitting Georgia, when we first started getting them here, they were sold out usually same day that they hit the stores. And that was another one. Same thing with them. They moved pretty quick. But other than that, man, you can get them.
You mentioned that. I got to say that I think I've seen the most expensive recent Bourbon County on the shelf. Those bottles, $26 or $27, and I'm like, they're never going to move at that price, guys. You got to know. Yeah. You got to know that. I know that's definitely a markup on MSRP, because I've seen them as low as 22, but I think 22 is still even a bit of a markup. Maybe. I'm not sure about the Backyard Stout. That might be a little pricier than
fancier,
the
a little
base
pricier
is, but
it's expensive, man. That's a lot for a bottle of beer.
26, man. No. I mean,
crazy.
I have sampled both of them now, and they are good beers, but I'm not shelling that out right now for stouts. When I do have, and I do to my benefit, I have the entire cellar full of like old Orpheus stouts. They're just insane, and I already paid for them, so I don't need to.
Yeah, no need to stock up more. You got a good stash there, huh?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, guys, I have a Green Man ESB from Old Green Man out of Asheville, North Carolina. And I met up with our buddy Clay from Six Bridges Brewing, local brewer, met up with him last week, and he gave me a couple of the new ones that they've got there. And I am currently sipping Basic Bunny, which is a caramel macchiato stout. This is tasty. Nice, creamy, smooth, stout. But this is one that he said started off as a joke and got legs. So then it became a beer there. So so that's what I've got. And I went backwards. I probably should have started with the ESB, but I wanted the stout. So I started with the stout, and then maybe I'll cleanse my palate there with the ESB here in a little bit.
Smart.
Why not have dessert first, man? Like, nobody's stopping you.
That's it. No one tells me how to live my life, Nate. I'll do what I want. Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So
Brian, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm living my best life over here. Definitely living my best life. Well, Brian, like I said, we're in a freeze here, and winter has made it to Georgia, and I got to be honest, man. I hate it. I'm not a fan. I don't like the cold weather. When I was watching, I've got the Echo, the Alexa thing on my desk with the screen on it, so I'm watching the temperature drop all day. I went outside to check my faucets late when it's like 16 degrees, and that was terrible. But you know what this weather puts me in the mood for, Brian?
What?
Summer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, but well, you know what? Since that's not going to happen, Brian, stouts. If it's going to be cold out there, I'm going to enjoy some good stouts. And you know what? Our friends at Terrapin Tap Room Atlanta, there's a couple good stouts on there right now. One of the newest in their white Imperial Stout series, they have a white chocolate cheesecake Imperial Stout. You don't see a lot of white stouts. They had a moment a few years ago where a few popped up, but I've generally been a fan of the white stouts that I've tried. So I do like the style. I know others aren't a big fan, but it's an Imperial white stout with the taste of the dessert in a glass, man. You've got that the chocolate cheesecake there. So that's definitely one. I haven't tried this one, but I think it would be a good one and something that I would like. And so, if you want to have dessert, you have some Fox Brothers barbecue, you want a dessert, just get it in liquid form, man. There's no point in all that chewing and stuff when you have dessert. You can just drink it, which is the way to go.
That's done all the hard work for you.
That's right. It's already broken down. Just its efficiency is what it's about. That's you go there to Terrapin, get your stout, efficient delivery of dessert. But Brian, maybe that's a little too much for you if you're not feeling quite that pastry-ish. How about a little wake and bake stout, which is now on tap at the tap room? That's a classic, man. That is a classic one from Terrapin. Been around for years and years and years. They've done a lot of variants of it. But the base beer, the Wake and Bake, is a coffee oatmeal stout, and just a really good one to go to. They even have the coffee that they use in it. You can get the coffee and brew that. Start off in the morning with a cup of the Wake and Bake coffee. Go out and grab you that classic coffee oatmeal stout combo. So always a favorite. Love the variants that they do. Love the Wake and Bake Off that we go. We are fortunate to get invited to judge that and eat some good foods made with Wake and Bake, and it's always a good town. So, Brian, if it's going to be cold, I'm going to have some stouts. Terrapin's got me covered there. But you know what? If you're not into stouts, don't worry. They've got their IPAs or Pilsners or Kolsch's there. And if, like me, you still want to grab a little bit of summer, their watermelon gueuze was still on tap. So you can go out there and do that. So, there's really no wrong answer here, Brian. And as always, we thank our friends at Terrapin Atlanta for sponsoring Beer Guys.
So I am in agreement with you. If I'm going to go out and brave the elements on frosty days like this, I'm going to need a little something to warm me up. And that little something is beer. And not just any beer. I'm looking for big, boozy warmth. Like you said, like stouts. I'm looking for that. If my heart had cockles, I'd want them to be toasty, and I'm going to toast them with beer. So with that in mind, I'd be making a stop at my nearest truck and tap because I'll know they'll have a stout that I'm looking for there, or some other beer that will fill my needs in these cold times. For example, if I were to head up to the Woodstock location, I'd be getting a pour of Creature Comfort's My Very Own Mole. Not only do I know this is a great beer, I've had it several times, it's a heavy hitter with a variety of warm spices and heat. If this beer doesn't warm you up, you may have already frozen to death. At the Duluth location, you could also get that beer, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to spring for Stillfire's Barrel-Aged Black Mask. I haven't had it yet, but it's a high-gravity bourbon barrel-aged Russian Imperial Stout, and that sounds about perfect right now. I'm going to get a little different because all things boozy in Belgium also are really appealing at the moment. So that's why my pick at Truck and Tap Alpharetta is Allagash Triple. Allagash doesn't make bad beers, and triples they have some oomph to them, and you're going to feel them. It's going to warm you up, and it gets you away from maybe some of that heaviness of the stout if that gets to be too much after drinking the two other stouts I just mentioned. So, not as extreme as the other ones, but it'll warm you up. It'll please the taste buds. And finally, at Lawrenceville's Truck and Tap, I'm back to a big, juicy, spicy stout with New Realm's Oaxaca Chaca. It's one we've both enjoyed a lot over the years. It comes packed with vanilla, cinnamon, chili peppers, roasted cocoa nibs, and it's got some heat to it. So that's the important part. And it's delicious. I mean, that is also important. So stop by and warm up at your local Truck and Tap. They do, of course, have 20 taps to choose from, so you don't have to go with my particular picks. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to get a little something from the day's food truck. For more details on what's happening right now at Truck and Tap, just go to truckandtap.com. And once again, thank you, Truck and Tap, for your support.
We definitely appreciate it. You know, Brian, I think that Oaxaca Chaca, that's an underrated, underappreciated stout. I think folks love those Mexican Imperial Stouts. There's like Mexican Cake from Westbrook gets a lot of love in that. Oaxaca Chaca is on that same plane. And so I think it's one that if you dig that, look that one up. Go over to Lawrenceville and check it out. And y'all, this is a perfect time to mention that on the 27th of January, we're doing an event with our friends at Truck and Tap at their Duluth location. And we're doing hot beer for cold weather, or hot drinks for cold weather, Brian. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have some mulled Glue Creek there. You're going to do a mulled barley wine, Brian, hot barley wine. What do you think about that?
I'm excited. I've never done that. I really want to see what this is like. Yeah. We're
going to break out our beer caramelizers so you can have a hot poked beer. They're partnering with their neighbors next door for a hot mulled wine. I've heard there's a hot Amaro beverage that's going to be in the mix there. Hot toddies, Brian. So we're just going to talk things, hot beverages for the cold weather there. Go over it and have a good time. And you know what? Before that, Brian, this coming weekend, you won't even hear this show until we're doing it, but we're going to the Atlanta Cascale tasting. We're going to get up there. Correct. We're going to sit down. Brian, I know you're a fan of the Cascales. You've been pushing it out there. So we'll be the next couple weekends. We're busy. We got events and things to do, beers to drink. So if you're out and about, come see us. Come see us. We'd love to have you there at the Truck and Tap event. All those drinks will be available to the customers as long as they're available. Going to be limited quantities of some of them there. But come hang with us. The 27th of January event starts at 2 p.m. And we'd love to have you come hang. Yeah. It'll be a good time. It would be
hang and drink
time.
Do both.
Hang and drink. Yeah, we'll have some swag, stickers, and other things. Whatever's in the swag bag at this time, we'll have some of that to give out. Well, Brian, here's some interesting news. So Drizly, that launched to deliver alcohol, Uber bought them a few years ago for $1.1 billion, and they just announced they're shutting it down. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So it's 3 years ago, $1.1 billion. I'm like, you buy something that pricey and then shut it down 3 years later. I mean,
that's a ballast point
money?
Move.
Yeah, seriously. So the official reason is the apparent push to consolidate all deliveries, food and everything else within the UberEats app. So they're trying to make that your one-stop shop for everything. Unofficially, Axios speculates that it may have to do more with the cybersecurity problems that Drizly has had in the past. Drizly was hacked in 2020, and 2.5 million customers had their data exposed. Allegedly, Drizly was made aware of the security problem for 2 years prior to this, but they didn't do anything to address it. The Federal Trade Commission restricted the types of customer data that Drizly could collect and retain, and insisted they deleted a bunch of stuff. And that probably hurts their ability to do marketing things and the other interesting things that businesses do with your data once they have it that they don't tell you about. But according to Drizly's Twitter account, They will still be taking orders to the end of March, and they will be sending out promos to lure users over to Uber Eats. So if you haven't done that, you might have a chance to do that. Did any of you guys ever use Drizly? That's my big question, because I did not.
So for a while they weren't available here. I think they did become available here, but no, it was never really a cause for me to use it there. Now, question, Brian, may not know this, but like you said, you've already got Uber Eats and all this stuff. Are they shutting Drizly down in name only? Because are they still going to have all the alcohol and that stuff falling under the Uber umbrella, and they're just dropping the Drizly side of things?
Yeah, I think they're ditching some of the technology, but they're definitely going to. My understanding is they're definitely going to be delivering spirits through Uber Eats, and I don't know because I haven't used Uber Eats in actually quite a while because I'm annoyed at them. But I think they may already do some spirits delivery, so I think that they're the plan is to consolidate all of it in under Uber Eats. So that is in a way it's in name only, but I think they are ditching old hardware and probably getting away from stuff that was the cause of the security, breach, basically.
I use Grubhub and DoorDash a decent bit, and several of those, when you go to a restaurant and you're going to check out, there will be a category on their menu that's like add alcohol, like, hey, you just grabbed McDonald's Big Mac meal. Do you want to add a bottle of wine to that? So they had, McDonald's doesn't have wine, so I'm assuming they're throwing it in there just trying to boost those alcohol sales, and it's a two-stop thing. Someone they grab your burger, then they hit the store and pick up your wine there. But several of the restaurants that are not alcohol type of restaurants, it'll be like, hey, add a 12-pack of beer, add a bottle of wine, do this and that. So they're definitely, I forget which one it was or if it's both, but they're definitely pushing to get people to buy alcohol.
Do they have an option for you to get a 40 ounce of malt liquor in a Stanley 40 ounce mug? Because look into that. Yes,
Brian. If they don't, then I see why they're having to shut Drizly down, because they're just not thinking if they don't already have that available.
You're not thinking straight if you're not doing that.
Yeah. Nate, did you ever use Drizly?
I didn't. Tim, you're right. For the longest time, that was not available here, and then it changed during the pandemic. I was working in a liquor store when that happened, and so delivering home delivery meant I bought it and then I went home from work. So I never really needed to utilize a home delivery system for my alcohol.
I always thought that was kind of my thing too. Is I go to the shops. I like going out and seeing what's there. So there was just never a cause for me specifically where I looked a couple times. They didn't have anything that I couldn't have got on my own, and a lot of times a pretty weak selection, to be quite honest with you. So there was just the selection on there. The fact that I'm going to shops anyhow, it just never a cause for me to use it.
I always thought it was fascinating that like your DoorDash or your Instacart or whatever, those kind of things, they seem to do a pretty good job, and I've used both a fair amount recently, and I like them. They are pricier than going out and doing it yourself, but of course they would be. I always thought it was interesting how bad the dedicated alcohol delivery systems were. You'd set it up, you'd have to order it for like a window the next day or next week or something like that. You're like, well, I got to know on Thursday at 4:00, I'm gonna both want beer or bourbon or whatever. And I probably will, but I have to be ready to receive it at that point in time. And with those things, I think you have to show up with ID, so you couldn't just order it and like I want it this afternoon. It was kind of like, well, you'll get it tomorrow, but you better be around when we show up with your ID. And I'm like, this is less convenient than going and getting it myself, and it costs more. So that was always my big thing with a lot of them. I looked into it because I'm like, how great would it be to get some of the latest new beer releases and have them delivered? Never had those ones. The ones I wanted were never on there. It was just, I could get a case of Corona and I could have it delivered next Thursday.
Right.
Okay.
I could see it being useful, like if you're planning for a party and you're like, look, I'm going to need a couple bottles of vodka. I'm going to need some tequila. I'm going to need, this and that. Need a couple cases of beer, a case of wine, and that. That would be convenient. Just like I know what I want. I need like shelf basics because I'm having a good party, and I want to have some drinks available. But for nerds like us, I don't think it never really seemed to make a lot of sense to me. But
no, it really didn't.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Brian, good news this week, something we followed probably a year or more now. We've kind of followed the saga going on in New Jersey with their alcohol laws. And I want to say thanks. We had a few listeners that kept us informed with things going on here. Bob L. especially would drop us messages either in the chat here, or he'd send us a message via our Facebook page, letting us know when changes happen. But this is the New Jersey governor signed the taproom operation reform into law. They finally got it done. This was pushed back on Brian last year. He vetoed a bill and said he wanted some more changes to it. This one passed. What's the scoop there?
Yeah. So it's finally, I think what it boils down to is all the things that it had in it. You can now have unlimited number of special events in your tap room. You can coordinate with food trucks, restaurants to get food service. You can sell snacks. You can you can expand on what you can do for special events. You could have watch parties for football, baseball, soccer games. And it increases the cap for brew pubs. But I think the big thing is it addressed the issue with the inactive liquor licenses, the spirits license. That was what the governor was really pushing back on. He wouldn't sign anything without that. So people could just have the liquor licenses, the spirits license, the beverage licenses, just sit on them for years and years and years and reduce the number that are out there. So the bill includes inactive licenses being put back into circulation if they are unused after 2 years, which will return the capacity to nearly 1,400 currently unused licenses. And those will be available for people to get and to open up bars with or do whatever they want with. The law also creates special licenses for shopping malls, which can apply to multiple retailers within the same mall, requiring, only one of them or one license for multiple establishments to use. So it drops the requirement on these expensive licenses and hard to get. So that's right. That's what it boils down to. So there's a lot of upside to this. There's a little bit, I think all of it's upside, and maybe the governor was smart to push back on this originally, but it really looked bad up until this point.
Yeah, and they put in I missed this if you mentioned it. Did you mention the farm brewery license, Brian?
No, I skipped over that. So
they got a farm brewery license that they've added to it for breweries that use agricultural products that are grown on their land, and a really considerable cap increase for the brew pubs up to 300,000 barrels. You might as well say unlimited there, because that's a lot of beer. That's a lot of beer, but it
was up from 10,000, I think. Limited to 10,000.
Huge change there. Huge change. But that's something, the licensing there was interesting, where they have kind of a limited number of licenses, so people could just set on these, and someone else couldn't get a license if they were maxed out. But now, that was the big thing, being able to add those back into circulation, and hopefully that'll mean either people need to use them so they'll get new places open up, or maybe someone that couldn't get a license before, now has the chance to get in there and get that done. So we've got a question here in chat, Brian, real quick, that I'm going to address. We've got Rich is asking us if I know any information about Dry County Brewing. That's a local brewery that, word came out, I guess, earlier last week or late last week, that some people went up there and the doors were locked. They were closed. So I did reach out to ownership there, and the feedback that I have is that the tap room is closed temporarily, and more info will be coming soon. So that's all I know so far at this point. That's what I was told by the Dry County ownership team. Temporarily closed, and more info coming soon. Rich, sorry I don't have more for you, but that is what we know right now on Dry County. So we'll see. Oh, you know what? Yeah. On the flip side of that, Pontoon Brewing, who we talked about that had issues with Bevana that caused them to close, they reopened this week in Atlanta. So they had two tap rooms before, Tucker, Georgia, and in Sandy Springs, Georgia. The Tucker location is gone. They said that one's not reopening at all. But their Sandy Springs location, they did reopen it. And, people were quite excited there. They've got a strong fan base. There's people that definitely really, really do like them. So, open back up. Good for them, man. It's not often that a brewery pulls a Lazarus move. So
exactly.
Good for them to do that.
And I'm glad they did that because of the two locations. The original location that they reopened is my favorite of the two. So if you had to pick only one, you made the right call.
You did. Absolutely. The OG location there. Absolutely. Well, Brian, acquisition news. We hear this pretty common anymore that this kind of stuff comes up. But Carlsberg has acquired a minority stake in Mikkeller. Mikkeller? Do you know the proper pronunciation?
I think it's Mikkeller.
Okay.
I used to say Mikkeller too, but I think it's Mikkeller. I'm not 100% sure. And the guy's name, his last name, I'm probably going to mutilate, but I'm going to try.
There's a lot of characters in that don't look familiar to me.
There's at least one character in there.
Björksa?
Björksa? It's
Mikkel Björksa. Totally off base here, but years ago I worked for Milwaukee Electric Tool Company. We did these workshops where we partnered up with our international partner companies, and there was a company out of Sweden, I think international, called Atlas Copco, and we had a workshop with everybody. And one of the engineers from Atlas Copco, his name was Robert Octahue. I know I'm saying that wrong because Robert got really annoyed that I couldn't say it properly. And he would tell me the way to pronounce it, and I swear I would say it right back to him exactly as he said, and he would snarl his nose and shake his head. He's like, no. I mean, and it was one of those things like you see in a sitcom where people say the same word back and forth to each other. So I know I'm not saying this correctly either.
I think in some cases, not only do our mouths and tongues not have the ability to say these sounds that they need to be said, we don't have the ability to hear them either. I don't think we can hear or say them. They're completely not, like our brain does not even interpret these sounds as being sounds. But yes, so Carlsberg acquired a 20% stake in Mikkeller. And as part of the deal, the gentleman that you just named, I'm not going to say his name again.
Mikkel, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mikkel is his first name. We'll go with Mikkel. Will maintain controlling interest and remain the CEO of Mikkeller. According to the drinks business, Carlsberg reportedly offered, I'm going to say that's Dutch kroner, 1 billion of them to buy the company outright. That's about 146 million US dollars. But the venture capital company that co-owns Mikkeller, Orkila, I'm not familiar with them. They weren't willing to sell, so they're settling for a 20% stake of it. The financial details of the transaction are being kept private, but 20% of 146 million is 29.2 million. So I figure it's probably around there, maybe give or take. I don't know.
Okay.
As to, it might be a little higher just because it sounds like they needed some talking into, and I think that Orkila is where the shares actually came from. As to why for the sale, according to Mikkeller, it's all about sales channels and distribution. Two things that have been a challenge for Mikkeller. They've had trouble like getting their beers out there, honestly. It sounds like they plan to really focus on growing the brand in Denmark. All of their facilities here in the U.S. closed in 2022 and 2023, so I don't think we're a focus any longer. But with Carlsberg just doing distribution of their beers, I have a feeling like maybe we'll start seeing them again sometime soon. But
they closed their San Diego location like a week after I went there, and I had limited time, and they were seriously like 2 blocks from my hotel, but I chose other places to go, and I'm like, I'll be back to San Diego. I'll see them next time. And they're like, hey, we're done. It's like,
Tim, it's your fault. They were holding out for you to
if I just went and bought those beers, man. If I just went and bought those beers. But
it's like Jolly Pumpkin all over again.
Yeah, exactly. What you think I'd learn my lesson, wouldn't you, Nate?
Yeah. Tim will never learn. When was the last time you guys had a Mikkeller beer? Either of you?
I honestly can't remember. Yeah, I haven't had one often. I haven't had one recent enough to where I recall when.
Same.
So I had one last year. I saw one on the shelf. It was a Beer Geek Breakfast. I was excited by it, and I realized, I believe it was printed on I think it was on a bottle, can, I don't remember actually at this point, but it was from 2016. It didn't hold up very well, and I was disappointed. The place I saw it just had really old stock, and that got me thinking. I'm like, man, it's been a while, and I went back looking through Untappd to see when I had them last, and I had a lot of them in 2017 and 2016, and they're just nothing since. So I think it probably is a distribution thing, and partly because other things were exploding and they weren't as exciting as they once were. Probably. I don't know.
Too much beer, Brian.
Too much
beer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, non-alcoholic beer in January, always a hot topic. We dabble all the time there. A question that I've seen asked by a lot of people is about getting NA beer on draft. Everywhere you see, it's in cans. It's in cans. And they're like, why isn't it on draft? Why isn't it on draft? There was an article that came out that said NA was a breeding ground for bacteria. I want to throw this in there real quick. That article inoculated these things with bacteria. So I think if you just saw the headline for that, you would think that NA beer was potentially unsafe, that it was just growing bacteria. That's not the case, Brian. That's not the case. They put the bacteria in alcoholic beer and non-alcoholic beer, and it grew more in the non-alcoholic beer. But it's not something you're going to get off the shelf, probably. That's most breweries have pretty safe practices, especially if you're doing NA beer. You want to make sure you're getting a good product out there. So it's not like you're going to have a can and leave it in the fridge for a month and open it up and it's got all kinds of critters in it there. So just throwing that out there. But Brian, the Brewers Association weighed in on the safety of NA draft beer. What'd they have to say?
Yeah, this is an official quote. I'm going to take it directly from them, so I don't get anybody in trouble, myself mostly. But after examining available evidence, the Brewers Association does not believe that sufficient evidence exists to understand the potential risk of serving non-alcoholic beer on draft. Similarly, the BA does not believe there is sufficient knowledge or experience to recommend best practices that would guarantee the safety of the product during on-premise draft retail sales. So this is specifically about draft in retail. So they basically are noting that, and it may be the same study, I don't remember if it is, but it's a Cornell University study that demonstrates that E. coli and salmonella can survive and grow and thrive in NA beer under certain conditions. If you inoculate that beer, they will definitely grow and thrive. That much
put them in there. Right.
Yes, if you do that, they will definitely do that. They also mentioned that poorly maintained draft systems that haven't been cleaned in a long time, and storage issues in retail and in distribution can introduce risk. I mean, we know that things don't always stay refrigerated, for example, both in distribution and in retail. So I think good NA beer options will continue to grow and thrive and be out there in cans, but I don't know that we're going to see them anytime soon on tap. I think that we've got some we got some distance to go. There's got to be more studies and more innovation maybe to address this. So if you guys saw NA beer on tap right now, would you have one?
So, Brian, to throw in real quick before I answer that, this is, even if you have good safety and cleaning practices and that, they're saying there still could be a risk there because, that's something even with the alcoholic versions of beer, you got to take care of those tap lines, man. I mean, there's sugars, there's things in these beers that can definitely grow if you're not taking care of things. And again, the BA said, hey, we don't have the evidence here to say this or that, but just kind of what we know about alcohol and, what it does, it's going to be more stringent. And there's no guidelines there for NA on what is a good practice. So you'd have to up your game over that even.
That's a really good point. And I skipped over that. I had written it down. But yeah, if you've ever gone to a bar or a brewery, you just had a beer that is good and then have it off the tap and it's just wretched, just like wrong or just gross, that's probably the tap room. And that's the risk you have with NA beer flowing through a tap. Whatever's making that gross there, that's going to could get back into the keg potentially. And then all bets are off.
Or in your glass, more importantly.
Or in your glass. So. Eventually will wind up in your glass if it's in the keg. So, and there's no
Brian, I mean, I don't think they're talking about a concern with getting back into the keg. These are in the beer lines. So if they're serving that in your glass, it's more about what's going into the glass,
True.
So, and that's now if you're going to a brewery or a craft beer bar, then, there's a good chance they're taking care of things. They want to make sure that you're getting a good drink there. But if you're going to your favorite dive bar and they're like, hey, NA beer has been trending, so we threw this keg on, that's a different story. And Brian, there's a very, very popular dive bar in Atlanta down in the Edgewood area that you and I stopped in to play some ping pong one time. And we had a Sweetwater IPA, which we know we've drank plenty of Sweetwater IPA. We know what that beer is supposed to taste like. We know what it tastes like from the brewery. That was not what was in our glass. And, it was pretty clear that there was some sanitation issues there. So, if you're going to a brewery, they're serving stuff on draft, darn good chance that they're going to be taking care of things, but maybe not everywhere. So Stephen Pete just dropped. Stephen, always good to see you, man. Stephen, we got so used to seeing Stephen join us that I messaged him last week. And I'm like, are you all right, man? Are you doing okay? Because you're always here hanging out with us. And he said he's just had a lot of events on Wednesday nights at the brewery that's been busy for him. So good for him, but he dropped in. So cheers to Kettle Rock Brewing. Stephen, thanks for joining us, man. We always good to see you here for sure. So, Brian, I think that's our stories for this week. I think we covered it pretty much. But, cold weather. We're below freezing here again right now as we record this. I think we're supposed to dip down tonight. We're supposed to hit the teens again tonight, which I do not like. Again, we've got some events coming up. We're going to be out at the Atlanta Cask Ale tasting this weekend as the show launches. We're going to be out there this Saturday, the 27th, the weekend after that. We're going to be at Truck and Tap in Duluth, Georgia, and we're going to be drinking hot beverages, hot alcohol, Brian, hot beers. We're going to be poking beers. Take you back to the old Facebook times of the poke, only ours will be flaming hot metal pokers that will shove down in your mug for you.
It's going to be so hot.
It's going to be great. That'll be fun, man. That's something I enjoy. It's kind of interesting. I was talking to the guys at Truck and Tap when we were doing our planning for this, and neither of them have done the caramelized, poke beers. And it's kind of interesting because it foams up, it pulls a lot of the carbonation out, puts a lot of head on the beer. And it doesn't warm the beer necessarily, but it does bring the temperature up a little bit. But the head on the beer is warm, like you'd have like a latte foam or something. So, it's an interesting experience, Brian. And Glue Creek, we've had the Glue Creek that we made at your house one time.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we had Glue Creek that Primitive Beer sent us a box. So there's still, was that a Glue? That was a Creek. It was a cherry beer, but I think they just called it Glue Beer.
Yeah, I think it was just Glue Beer. I don't know if it was officially a Creek, but it's.
And I don't think we mulled that one. I think we just had that one out of the box, right?
Yeah, I think we just drank it straight. We didn't do anything to it at all. Yeah.
So, but that'll be fun. So a couple good fun things going on. We definitely are looking forward to that.
I feel like I've hot poked more beer than most people. I feel like I
think you probably definitely most people in our group. I know there's some people I saw a brewery in Chicago did an event last weekend where they had everybody come out and do that. Brian, I meant to tell you, I saw they're doing a rock beer event, and it's going to be a beer and sausage thing. One price, all you can eat and drink. And some of the sausages were made with the rock beer. Sorry, Brian just fell out of his chair. We're sorry. He's not going to make it. Thank you for your 8 years of service to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
I can't even hardly speak.
He's seizing up.
Yeah. It was a good try, though. Well, y'all, I think that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. As always, we love hanging out with you, having some good beers. I've enjoyed my stout, Basic Bunny. Thanks again to Clay at Six Bridges for hooking us up. This is out now, so go get some if you're in the Atlanta area. Y'all, stay warm. Have a good week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.